A while back, I uploaded a video on the Donkey Kong 64 Retro Achievements set. Less than a week later, a revision was announced. I've since remastered the set, and now I need to make a follow-up video, because new achievements have been added that I need to go over, and the structure overall has changed so much that some of my biggest critiques on the set are now completely outdated. That being said though, I'm only going to cover the new changes in the set, so if you haven't seen part 1, you're going to want to watch that first. But with all that established, let's begin by answering a question that I expect quite a few of you to have. What happens to a Retro Achievements user's profile when a set that they mastered gets revised? The big thing is that they will get grandfathered into keeping that mastery badge, but of course many players may wish to go back and take on those new challenges anyways. Additionally, in many circumstances when a new achievement gets added, and then someone who previously mastered the set would have reasonably gotten that new one too if it existed back then, the developer can do a manual unlock for those achievements for that player, and it usually takes them a few days to get it done after the revision goes live. So now let's talk about the single biggest change to the achievement structure, the banana coins. In my previous video, I mentioned that I liked the idea from a fundamental standpoint, but thought that the implementation of the achievement was pretty rough. The issue before was that it wasn't tracked on the in-game total screen, and certain upgrades could be purchased with any Kong. So unless you just so happen to have a checklist with you from the very beginning, you'd inevitably find yourself in a spot where you didn't know which Kongs were missing coins, how many they were missing, or what levels they may or may not be in. Thankfully for newer players, this is no longer an issue because the one achievement has been split up into individual levels. On a similar note, they did the same thing for the colored bananas as well. Then for the individual levels, it used to be that you would just have a single achievement for collecting everything that you needed for 101% within that level, but now they've been broken down into multiple smaller categories instead. Then there's one more major quality of life change to go over, and that's the dev save. Normally, using a save that isn't your own in hardcore mode is against the rules and can get you untracked from the leaderboards. The big exception to that is that the developer of the Retro Achievement set provides a save and permits other players to use it. And in this case, the save provided by the developer allows you to quickly reattempt any missable achievement in the set. So yeah, no more worrying about missable achievements in a set because you can just load up the dev save. I absolutely love it, and I wish more sets could incorporate this idea. After loading up the save myself, I then have 11 new achievements that I need to obtain in order to remaster the set. We'll go level by level, so starting off in Jungle Japes, we have a non-missable achievement for completing the minecart level with 72 coins or more. And it was a pretty simple first attempt clear. There are way more than 72 coins for you to collect, so you can spare a few hits and miss a few if you want. But if you are in a situation where you're about to lose, you can just pause and reset, and then you won't have to trek all the way back to the very beginning. Then we go to the Angry Aztec lobby, where it took me more attempts to actually reach the barrel than it did to complete the challenge, completing Big Bug Bash with at least 30 seconds to spare. I basically just got a little semicircle pattern going, and was able to repeatedly kill it shortly after it spawned. Then we head into the Angry Aztec, where we have another easy minigame achievement. On the dev save, you will have to ground pound a switch to open up this area, and then you have to complete Stealthy Sprint with at least 20 seconds to spare. I just wandered around aimlessly because I didn't remember the route, and I still got it on my first attempt. But I can't say the same for the next challenge because it was one of the harder ones in the set. Winning the beetle race with 60 or more coins. There's not too much advice I can give other than attack the beetle at the start to get ahead, don't bump into him on your way down, slow down at the turns, and get good. Because while most of the minigame achievements that require extra coins are pretty generous, this one is much more narrow in terms of leniency. It's not impossible, it's not complete bullshit, but it is a test of skill. And that's what made it one of the more satisfying achievements to overcome. I was so focused on getting it done that I just outright forgot to commentate while doing it live. So while it wasn't the prettiest run, a victory is still a victory. I then make my way to Frantic Factory, where we then have the real hardest revision achievement in the set, Production Room Run, which is missable. You have to collect Chunky's timed golden banana with at least 56 seconds to spare, without switching Kongs, and without warping. I'd call it 95% skill, and then 5% luck with the cycle timing. After ground pounding the switch, make your way to the other half of the room while avoiding the box, which surprisingly never got in my way. Then ideally you'd want to make it to this platform while not having to wait for it to lower first, but a bad cycle here isn't going to be the end of the world. Then across this next section, I just aim right for the squares. You can then blind jump to the center area, or center the camera behind you first since you have time to do so. You'll then jump up, take a left, climb up the ladder, take a right, cross the roller, the speed of which shouldn't matter too much, and then jump up the steps 2 at a time. Then you jump to the platform as it comes in, and then hope that you had good luck on the timing of the crusher. If it opens up in time, then congratulations, you got your banana and the achievement. But if you get a really bad cycle, don't try to be like me and push your luck on the timer. Or else you just may end up collecting it right as it deactivates, and then just like me have to save it for the very end because you have to reload the dev save. Then moving on, our other new Frantic Factory achievement is a non-missable with Tiny, winning the slot car race with at least 16 or more coins. And despite my incredibly sloppy driving and me missing the missile shots, I still got it on my first attempt. which means that next up is Gloomy Galleon, where we once again have an achievement with coins tied to it. We have to complete the seal race with 15 or more coins, and without missing any of the gates. Initially, I thought that this was going to be one of the hardest new achievements. It actually really wasn't that bad at all. It's just 2 long figure 8s, so focus on the coins for the first lap, and then getting first place on the second. For these 2 coins here, I split them up into 2 passes because it's really hard to get them both on the same lap. The 2 big things to be careful of are that you don't want to hit the boxes or else you'll lose coins, and you don't want to accidentally get yourself nudged out of the gate by the seal. Overall, I expected to hate this challenge initially, but it ended up being my favorite one of the new achievements. Things got hectic on my successful attempt as I was bouncing off the walls, and I ended up hitting a crate at the very end, but still had enough coins to make it. It was so exciting that the other achievement in Gloomy Galleon was pretty anticlimactic. You just have to complete Searchlight Seek with 45 seconds or more to spare. And similar to the Big Bug Bash achievement, you can get that spawn kill groove going to make quick work of this. In my case, it only took me 9 seconds. So then we move on to Fungi Forest. And next we have an achievement that I was surprised wasn't in the set originally. Defeating the spider mini-boss without taking any damage. It's not missable because you can rebattle the spider, and if you need to reset for any reason, you can just jump into the pit to make it faster. But for many of you this will be a first attempt clear. Each of the mini spiders take 2 hits each, so just run in wide circles rounding them up, and then attack through them all at once. Once they're defeated, shoot the big spider in the eye, and then get out of the way as the new mini spiders spawn. Rinse and repeat. The big spider's attacks are easy enough to dodge, plus they only really mess with your controls, and they can actually hit the mini spiders for damage too. Then we move on to the second new achievement in this section, completing the minecart section with 60 or more coins. That's not a big jump because the original required 50, but it still took me a few attempts because there's timings to figure out, barrels to avoid, enemies to dodge, gates to activate, obstacles to jump over, and a few fake outs thrown into the mix. And every single time that I attempted this level, I fell for the third bell, which actually closes the gate instead of opens it, but I was still able to get the achievement because there's way more than 60 coins, so you can spare quite a few hits and still get it. And then we have one final new achievement, which is once again minecart related. In Creepy Castle, you have to clear the section with 50 or more coins, and I'd argue that this is actually easier than the Fungi Forest one. There's no TNT barrels, the dodging is straightforward, and the pacing is overall slower. I almost finished this casually with 60 coins before taking a hit at the final obstacle, so once again you have plenty of wiggle room. The only downside here as opposed to Fungi Forest is that your reattempts are going to take longer. Your 2 main stationary obstacles are going to be the gates and the tombstones, both of which are pretty easy to dodge if you're slowing down. Then for the monster, all you have to do is bait it into attacking the rail that you want to leave, that way you can safely grab the coin afterwards. Then for the fireballs, since the camera changes and they chase you from behind, the key is to speed up to increase the dodge window. And with that, that is the last of the new achievements for the revision. I of course had to go back to redo the Frantic Factory one because of my earlier blunder, but our Donkey Kong 64 Remastery journey is finally complete. And I wish that I could have started this with a revision instead of the original set, because most of my biggest criticisms were all addressed, and then even more quality of life changes were made on top of it. However, my one major grievance with Crazy Kong Climber still exists, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it means you didn't watch part 1. But at least there's still workarounds for that achievement. But that's not the end of the video because the subsets got updates too. Remember that multiplayer subset I talked about? That got an update. So what exactly changed? Well...
he's dead!
Yeah, so the entire subset got removed, and it's actually entirely my fault, so sorry about that, everyone. It turns out that there's pretty clear rules about multiplayer subsets actually requiring multiple players to complete, and that they can't be cheesed by only a single player. I talked about tricks such as mapping inputs to multiple controllers, or using a glitch by having one player stand at the edge of the arena to make it so that the enemies can't detect anyone, which meant that I was showing that the set was never in compliance in the first place, and they directly cited me when deciding to demote the set. So lesson learned, I will not cheese the multiplayer subsets anymore, I'll find a second player. And to answer the question of what happens to the people who previously mastered the set, the answer is that they get to keep the badge, but it's now worth 0 imaginary internet points. But from a practical standpoint, it was never in compliance to begin with, it was worth so little points, and most players could complete it in a half hour, meaning that I never really deserved those points in the first place, and it's really not something to get worked up over. But much more importantly, as one subset gets removed, another one gets added. I mentioned at the end of the first video that Donkey Kong 64 would be a prime candidate for a glitch showcase subset, and now it exists. I'll definitely give it a go one day, but if you want to see that happen sooner rather than later, then let the stats on these first 2 videos speak for themselves. As for the next video to expect on here, we're going to move on to the second place winner of my earlier poll, which as of the time of this recording was Sly Cooper. That's all I got for now, subscribe for more Retro Achievements content, and until next time, don't cheese the multiplayer subsets.